the prison system in the Maldives never been very much systematized. It was just, you take some people somewhere and put them there, and it was not been running as a prison as per se.
I think it's extremely important that there's an independent body to monitor detention conditions, especially in a place like the Maldives, where it has had such a history of maltreatment and torture in prisons.
We were requested by the government to act as an MPM in the Maldives. Then the commission decided, okay, we can take it, but we have a condition. The condition is that we need to have resources, both financial and technical resources. See, the Maldives as a nation, as a country, the concept of human rights, the concept of introducing preventive mechanisms, these are completely new. The challenges becomes when you look for the staff, especially for the NPM. You could hardly get anyone who probably have had any experience, no academic background on such activity. Secondly, it was also a challenge for the Commission to convince many of the government officials of the role of NPM in the context of preventing torture in places of detention.
The most important thing for the national preventive mechanism would be to maintain a constructive dialogue with the authorities, so that we can keep on improving the relations in order to reach our goal, that is to prevent torture altogether in the country. Before the national preventive mechanism was assigned to us, we had a monitoring and inspecting mandate whereby we would go to the prisons and all the detention facilities in the country and do a monitoring visit and submit a report to the relevant authorities. However, this was more reactionary rather than a preventive approach. Well, the NPM basically, as I mentioned before, it's preventive, and we don't want to get it mixed with the reaction with all complaints handling. They will be very clear with what their mandates are when they are talking to the inmates, but they have an option to bring or to refer complaints to the complaints department of the Human Rights Commission.
I would like for the NPM here to really listen to what people say. I mean, families of people who are in detention, and organizations such as us, because we have no personal gain in calling up the NPM and asking them to make a visit or informing the NPM of possible misconduct by the detaining authorities. In the recent months, we have seen that the NPM has been making visits. They've been publishing reports about the prison conditions, and we have the last report that was made by the National Human Rights Commission was very different from what we have seen previously, and I salute that kind of reporting.
One example of the effectiveness of the NPM is that there was one prison, it's like beach jail, and when we visited, the whole jail was managed by the prisoners themselves. There was no fence, it's a separate island. There was no records who are there, how many prisoners were there, what kind of facilities they have. There was nothing, and the NPM made a recommendation to close it down immediately, and then it was done.
The New Zealand National Preventive Model involves 5 organisations, all of which are independent organisations, independent of government that is. Each of us has specific areas of responsibility to cover, but we also have a requirement to work together. The New Zealand Human Rights Commission is the central mechanism. We've got responsibility for coordinating the work of the national preventive mechanisms. We've got responsibility for liaising with the international subcommittee and for identifying and reporting on systemic issues. I think there are a number of benefits of having a multi-agency mechanism. We're drawing on the experience of organisations who have worked in the particular areas that they've got responsibility for, and that feeds into and informs their preventive strategies and priorities. We've seen real benefits from the different organisations coming together, discussing what the approach should be, where we can standardise, where it needs to be adapted to the different circumstances, and just sharing experiences. One of the challenges, and which continues to be a challenge, has been getting a level of resourcing from government for all of the mechanisms that enables us to do the job to a standard that we believe is necessary. When you've got a concept like national preventive visits, you actually have to be able to do the visits, and you have to be able to do them more than once every 10 years. And you sometimes have to be able to do them at difficult hours, you know, unannounced in the middle of the night. Now, into mechanisms, regardless of the resourcing levels, to actually take this seriously and make it work. The second challenge has been finding ways of working which respects the independence of each of the institutions, but actually at the same time enables us to cooperate and to collectively have the impact that's necessary. The significant issues the visits have identified in the 2 years that we've been operating include the impact of very old, run-down facilities, which make it very difficult to ensure the safety and decent treatment of people who are detained there. Secondly, there's been, and I think this is, you know, an example of how positive this is, that the national preventive mechanisms have picked up examples, not many, but nonetheless, where people have been inappropriately detained or effectively illegally detained, and they've kind of fallen between the cracks. There's also been situations, and these again are quite serious, of inappropriate use of seclusion or segregation. A national preventive mechanism is working well when it's engaging effectively at the grassroots level, at the institutional level, and the people who work in those institutions see that it's a positive, see the value of having an outside independent body work with them to ensure that they're delivering fair, decent and humane conditions of detention. Of course, over time, we would expect to see fewer and fewer examples identified of ill treatment, of poor conditions, and I mean, that's the ultimate goal.